Hej kära vänner, jag vill ge er en riktigt stark uppmuntran innan jag fortsätter på den här videon. Den här videon kommer att handla om ändens tid och en del kusliga saker som redan händer framför våra ögon. Men vi som tror på Jesus, vi ska inte frukta. Vi ska följa honom på den smala vägen. Och Gud har förberett segrar i Jesu namn. Jag fick se en stark syn från Herren för ett par dagar sedan. Jag brukar ju drömma mycket, ni vet. Men den här gången kom det som en så jättestark syn. Och direkt så började jag ju be vad det här betyder. Och jag fick uttydningen då. Och det står i andra Korinthierbrevet, andra kapitel från vers 12 till 11. Jag ska ta och läsa de verserna. Och det handlar ju alltså om att Gud för oss genom öppna dörrar, som även kan betyda valv. Och så för han oss precis som han gjorde med de romerska kejsarna när de vann segertåg. Nu gick de genom valv. De gick genom triumfbågar, hette det då på den tiden då. Och det är de bilderna Paulus använder här. Så vi som tror på Jesus och följer hans kors, säger avtackar oss världen och synden och är under Kristi blod. Vi kommer att besegra det här systemet som jag fick se. Jag fick alltså se en syn, valv. Och vi stod framför en sån här valv som är en öppen dörr. Och så långt ögat kunde nå så var det valv med jämna mellanrum för oss att gå in i. Och lite längre bort så ser jag två väldigt stora svarta pyramider. Men den här vägen den gick rakt emellan som en dal ut på andra sidan. Och där ser jag ett ljus och så var synen slut. Och det här ljuset går väl inte att missta sig på. Det var Jesu Kristi tillkommelse när vi ska förvandlas och få ett evigt liv. Halleluja. Och jag tror vi börjar närma oss slutscenen på hela den här världen. För människan har sjunkit djupt ner i synd. Det kommer ni att märka efter mitt tal här när jag börjar på videon. Hur Gud faktiskt använder den här eliten för att döma den här världen. Människan drar på sig sin egen dom genom sin egen visdom. Och utför det genom Satan då först och främst. Men Satan använder människor. Och det är de här höga herrarna då som tror de ska bli gudar och besitta den här jorden. Men det sa ju inte Herren, utan han sa ju att Abrahams säd och de som tror på honom, det är ju Jesus, ska besitta den här jorden. Det var ju det löfte Abraham fick. Och nu läser jag i Jesu namn då det här innan filmen börjar. När jag kom till Troas för att predika Kristi evangelium hade Herren öppnat en dörr för mig, eller ett valv. Ändå fick jag ingen ro i min ande eftersom jag inte fann min broder Titus där. Så jag tog avsked av dem och for till Makedonien. Men vi tackar Gud som alltid för oss fram i Kristi segertåg. Ja, vi har ju en underbar ledare. Vi har ingen kejsare, utan vi har en Gud som har blivit människa och vunnit seger på sitt kors på Golgata. Och nu för han oss igenom. Han går alltid före oss, han går alltid efter oss. Och nu för han oss igenom de här valven som är förutberedda gärningar och öppna dörrar. Och genom oss överallt sprider Kristi kunskaps väldoft. Och ni vet att Jeriko betyder väldoft. Och när Josua kom in i landet så ödmjukade han under Jesus. Och så skulle han lyda där. Och det var ju en underbar seger. Det var ju bara skökan Rahab som blev frälst där i Jeriko genom att sända ner ett rött snöre. Och det röda snöret, det är en bild på Kristi död och Kristi uppståndelse, alltså på korset. Ty vi är en Kristi rökelse inför Gud bland dem som blir frälsta och bland dem som blir förtappade. Inför dem senare en doft av död till död. Förd i förra en doft av liv till liv. Vem räcker nu till för det här? Alltså hur ska vi vara för att kunna vinna segrar med andra ord? Ja, det står ju uppenbarelseboken till församlingen i Philadelphia hur vi ska vara för att vinna de här segrarna. Vi ska vara svaga och ödmjuka, men vi ska vakta på Guds ord, säger han till församlingen. Då ska han öppna dörrarna som leder rakt igenom den stora vedermödan som ska komma över hela jorden för att sätta dess innebyggare på prov. Och så läser vi här då hur vi ska vara som predikanter för att få gå igenom de här segerdörrarna med Herren. Vi är inte som de flesta som för egen vinning förfalskar Guds ord. Nej, i Kristus predikar vi med rent sinne inför Gud. Alltså Gud vet allt, han läser vårt sinne, han kan våra tankar. Det ord som kommer ifrån Gud. Och det är precis vad jag gör med er nu. Jag förkunnar precis vad Gud visar mig i den här synen. Och han har aldrig förändrats, utan det är ju vi människor i vår visdom som förändras. Och ni vet att nu håller man på och ska med AI-teknik översätta Bibeln. Och då får man ju en världsreligion så småningom. Och den, kära vänner, kommer leda rakt in i helvetet eller den andra döden som står talas om i Uppenbarelseboken. Vad ni än gör, följ Golgata kors och Kristus. Och följ inte de här nu. I Jesu namn. Så fortsätter vi den här videon så ska vi se hur man använder olika tekniker för att värma upp eller frysa ner jorden. Man förstör helt enkelt jorden. Men då ska vi veta att det är Gud som har makten. Han använder bara Satan. Satan får bara tillåtelse att utföra Guds dom. Han får bara tillåtelse att använda människor för sin räkning när Gud vill. Så det är ju inte så här att Gud har tappat kontrollen över jorden. Det kommer han aldrig ha. Han har minsta lilla atom i sin hand. Så i Jesu namn, amen, fortsätter nu videon som är ganska kuslig faktiskt.
There's news where there was a deadly dome that formed over part of the U.S. And then the dome even expanded, as under the dome there was heat that had the power to scorch people, and it was deadly to where it even brought death. Based on the best-selling Stephen King novel of the same name, there was a TV series called Under the Dome about the people who lived in a town in Maine where they find themselves in their town suddenly covered by a transparent dome that became a dome of death for many of them. And now, in real life, there has been a transparent dome of death that has formed not just over a town, but that formed over an entire large state in the U.S., where the state of Texas was covered by what the experts called a heat dome. Reports said that there was a persistent region of high pressure over Texas that formed a transparent dome that was trapping excessively hot temperatures over the entire area, that was just baking the entire state like it was in an oven. Texas towns were recording all-time record-high temperatures, for example, like Del Rio, with 115 degrees. Laredo also at 115 degrees. And San Angelo, Texas, at 114 degrees. Also the heat index, which is how hot it feels to the human body when humidity is factored in. It reached a record of 125 degrees in Corpus Christi, Texas. The blistering triple-digit temperatures across Texas had the state rivaling the traditional hottest locations on the planet, including the Sahara Desert and the Persian Desert, to where Texas was even hotter than Death Valley, as Rio Grande Village, Texas in Big Bend National Park was hotter than Death Valley, according to the National Weather Service, with Rio Grande Village at 115 degrees, while Furnace Creek in Death Valley recorded only 109 degrees, they said. As ERCOT, the power grid operator for Texas, said that power use was hitting all-time highs as demand for air conditioning spiked, and hospitals also recorded a 30 to 40% spike in health emergencies from the heat, with hundreds upon hundreds hospitalized, as the dome of heat was like a cauldron of misery sprawling across the huge, rambling state of Texas, filled with skyrocketing temperatures under the inside of the dome. And that's how it became a dome of death, as the heat under the dome was just more than some people were able to bear. For example, a 31-year-old man and his 14-year-old stepson, they both died when going outside in the extreme heat at Big Bend National Park, where temperatures were reported to reach 119 degrees. Also, a Dallas mailman, while delivering the mail outside, also collapsed and died. And in nearby Louisiana, a 14-year-old man was found dead, lying outside on a sidewalk in Shreveport, having died from the heat, as the heat dome became a dome of death for some. And then something happened to this dome as it began to expand and grow, to where millions more people were also put under it and made to sizzle under the dome as it expanded out northward, westward, and eastward. As strangely, the normal behavior of the Earth's jet stream, which is the band of fast winds high in the atmosphere that generally runs west to east and clears things out, it started to meander and lose its way and slow down and nearly stop as the dome grew, with nothing able to escape from under its oppression of heat. The dome grew, with it expanding into New Mexico and also up into Oklahoma, and then out into Louisiana and Arkansas, placing millions and millions of more people into danger from what was under the dome. And this is not only in Texas, but this phenomenon is spreading now around the world, as there was a dome of heat that was also appearing at the same time in Shanghai, China, where they recorded the highest temperature in more than 100 years. Also in Vietnam's northern district, the heat reached nearly 112 degrees, the highest temperature ever recorded in the country. And Thailand also saw the hottest ever temperature recorded in Bangkok. And then Siberia, of all places, set dozens of records as temperatures climbed above 100 degrees during a heat dome that formed strangely in the far north at the same time of what was happening in Texas. And now the reports have just come out this week how that the world has just recorded the hottest day ever on the earth, not setting the record on just one day this week, but the world broke the record for the hottest day this week on 3 consecutive days, as heat domes around the world are setting unbearable heat records that are signs of a death sentence for people and the environment that can bring the stress of famine, war, and more to the nations. We just warned 3 months ago this spring how that there were signs that the sun is waking up and becoming more unstable and active, as there was havoc in the magnetic fields on the surface of the sun. We reported about that just 3 months ago this spring, to where the sun's magnetic fields were getting more tangled and crashing into each other as massive planet-sized holes were being ripped through the surface of the sun. And then there were intense solar winds that were spewed outward with solar energy and charged particles exploding outward from the sun. The Earth's atmosphere, jet streams, seas, and waves are affected by the sun. And then they also transport the impact of the sun around the Earth, which can result in extreme phenomena that we are seeing happening now as signs of the last days. The prophecies of the last days foretold as in Luke chapter 21, that there shall be signs in the sun, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, with the sea and the waves roaring, and it's happening just as Bible prophecy foretold. One chief meteorologist in these past few days and weeks of these heat domes just said that the environment of the earth was fueling the record heat dome so extreme that even the experts were astonished, and said that such a heat dome as this was basically impossible without things changing in the environment of the earth. The National Institute for Standards and Technology says that human skin begins to feel the pain at a temperature of 111 degrees Fahrenheit. And then they go on to say that human skin can sustain first-degree burns, being scorched at 118 degrees. And we are already there, with temperatures reaching that and higher under these heat domes of death. And imagine what it would be like if a heat dome of death was to form around the entire world, with intense temperatures of heat from the sun covering the globe that could not be escaped. And the prophecy of Revelation in chapter 16 foretells what will happen in the end time, where it describes how that the angel pours out his vial upon the sun, and power was given unto him to scorch men with fire, and that men were scorched with great heat, until they blasphemed the name of God, which hath power over these plagues, and they repented not to give him glory. What is happening now in these events we have described this evening are a warning sign of this nearing vial prophesied soon to come in the Revelation prophecy that will be poured out. And now we already are reaching temperatures of heat from the sun that can scorch and burn humanity. Already we are at the level to fulfill the prophecy. And we are having increasing heat domes of death that are gathering now around the world. As these signs are being revealed now, while there is still grace, so that someone may repent and turn to God.
Ja, hej på er. Här sitter jag vid Torslandaviken och älvor har gått före mig till muddret där borta. Det finns lite vadare där. Jag håller ju på att spela in en film, förstår ni, om ändens tid här. Och det verkar ju precis som om Gud använder eliten, både det politiska systemet och sen det religiösa systemet. När jag var på Moholm sa Gud åt mig att jag skulle läsa andra Mosebok. Typ på samma sätt skulle Herren din Gud göra igen. Och där såg vi att det fanns ett religiöst system och det fanns ett politiskt system då i form av farao. Och det kommer att upprepas igen.
This Popeye, Project Popeye. There's another clip. I know we're not ready to go off into it yet because there's a few more things you want to say, but I don't think we can get through the end of the show without explaining, without showing this additional clip on Project Popeye.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the one thing I want to say is because of this, the weather manipulation and what the U.S. was able to do with this, and how it worked in Vietnam. One of the things that came from it, this is just one thing I want to touch on before we hit that video, is that because of this, there was an environmental modification convention, and an international treaty was made up to ban this in the time of war, so hostile forces couldn't take over this and use it. And that was interesting that Esther said what she said. It's not the U.S. anymore that controls this. Now it's the powers, like the world government powers. Well, one of the things that they were afraid of when they made this, and this was 1978 that they signed this into a law there, is that they were afraid that if evil forces got a hold of this, they could create earthquakes, tsunamis, tornadoes, and cyclones and things like that with this machine, that they would be able to do this with the technology they had there. And so there is an international environmental law against that, a treaty against that. So if anybody is truly using that, they're breaking international law. Of course, if it's the international powers that be that are using it, if it's really in existence now and this is what they're doing, to me, if Biden says, hey, we got this and we can do it, and it's the same type of thing, then he's breaking international law. But it's been going on for a long time. I'm telling you, I used to, back when I used to be a youth pastor, I drove a school bus, and I would go on field trips, and while I was waiting on the kids on their field trips, I would wait in the bus and I would see them. I was sitting there watching them spray in the skies, and I'd just watch them back and forth all day spray as I was sitting there waiting for the kids to come back. And so I know that it's happened forever, but that's all I wanted to finish that article and let you know. This is from popscience.com is where this original article came from, but this is also on the History Channel. You can go to the History Channel and get a whole video about Project Popeye.
Wow.
So
how about that Project Veritas video?
Yeah.
You ready for that?
Well, that we don't have we already showed that.
Project Popeye, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought the other one was Veritas as well.
No, this one is the second part of that, of what I showed a while ago. So a little bit more information about what Project Popeye was. I want everybody to see this.
But there was one thing that significantly slowed the supply flow on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. Rain turned the trails into muddy messes, rendering them too difficult to supply vehicles to maneuver. Vietnam is known for having one of the world's longest monsoon seasons, usually running from April to October. June, July, and August are the months with the heaviest rain. And so the Department of Defense decided to attempt to recreate this process. Their goal was to try to control the weather and extend the monsoon season for as long as they could. To achieve this, they resorted to cloud seeding. This process is thought to have originated in 1946 by Vincent Schaefer, a chemist employed by General Electric. Cloud seeding is a method for artificially producing rain or snow. It requires modifying a cloud's chemical structure to boost the chances of precipitation with the added substance of silver iodide, which works as a condensation agent. There are two ways to disperse cloud seeding agents, either using large cannons to shoot the particles into the sky, or using airplanes to drop the particles from above.
Okay, so the reason why I wanted everybody to see that is this is exactly what our president is talking about doing right now, cloud seeding, and dropping it to where it produces more clouds. Well, out of that, you've got to ask yourself, because we're being told by people like Al Gore that the reason why we're having these intensified storms now, the reason why we're having the extreme heat, all the things that are happening is because of global warming, man-made induced global warming by fossil fuels and things like that. But you've got to ask yourself a question. Is it conspiracy theory anymore when we've just shown you that this has existed since, they said 1946. So since 1946, and did you notice that there was like a blue beam that they were shooting in that laboratory when they were doing it? They were like shooting a blue beam that was doing something with the clouds that they had made up. It's interesting as well, because there's been footage about stuff like that where these blue beams have been seen shot out of the sky. People are getting video footage of it. And if those videos are real, then things happen after they see these beams. So it's interesting, but the main thing that I want to talk about today is not the conspiracy side of this, but I want to talk about the fact that they're able to do this and they're beginning to tell us, and they are doing it for fear purposes, to drive an agenda like they do with everything. Klaus Schwab told us that would be the next thing we would deal with. So what are they going to want to do next? They're going to want to take away, well, I mean, what did we see this year? What are things we're seeing? Well, you got to stop producing cattle. You got to stop having cows because when they pass gas, they're causing global warming. When they eat, food that's been fertilized, the fertilizer's causing global warming. So they've shut down farms, they've shut down cattle ranches, they've done all these things because of this fear-induced agenda they're trying to push. And now they want to take away your cars.
What good's that though? What good is doing any of this stuff? Like
as far as what?
Like for their agenda. How does shutting down a farm, or how does even saying they're going to research and block the sun, how does that advance the global agenda of the World Economic Forum?
Well, for one thing, remember what they've told us their goals are. So you won't eat meat anymore. That'll only be for special occasions, and the meat you eat will be produced in a lab. There was an article the other day that the FDA has approved a lab-produced meat that they've made in a lab that's not even real meat from a real cow, and they're saying now you don't even need cows to do this. And so, I mean, all this is part of their agenda to move you off of where you are, to control you. If they can shut down your food supply, if they can shut down your ability to travel. We've talked about all these things before when we've talked about smart cities and how they don't want you leaving your city because of you producing a carbon footprint and all these things. It's all about control, Vince. They want to shut us down, put us in these little cubes, and tell us what we're going to do. Remember, Yuval Noah Harari made a comment one time, and we showed it on a video here, that he said the only thing that humans will be good for is playing video games and taking drugs in the future, because there's going to be AI and it's going to be controlling everything, and we won't need people anymore. And if that's the way that they look at us, as we're just useless individuals in the future because they're going to have AI and only the elites are going to have certain things, and we're going to be the have-nots. Remember, you'll have nothing and you'll be happy. You'll own nothing and you'll be happy.
How much of the God complex plays into this? Because I think about there are people who feel like they have God powers, where because they might be able to operate on someone and save their life, or because they might be able to fly a plane, or anything that goes against like normal human behavior or how it's been for thousands of years. People that are doing things like this, ability to control the weather, that's like they're going to get a God complex, and they're going to think that they have powers that are greater. I think about the Tower of Babel, being able to have powers that are greater than what they really are.
Well, so I think you're hitting the nail right on the head. I think that's what it's all about. I mean, they already feel like they're gods, and that's what they want, is to be able to control everybody and rule over them. That's what all this is. I think it is a God complex.
We talk about the spirit of the Antichrist, where there's things happening that may not be, someone may not be the Antichrist, but the spirit that the Antichrist will have certainly either dwells in them or controls them, or however that plays out. So this agenda, it seems to be playing out on a global scale already, but we haven't seen anything yet, according to the Bible.
No, we haven't seen anything yet. And, one of the things that it doesn't concern me to where I'm afraid or anything, don't get me wrong, because I'm not afraid, because I know God's in control. But one of the things that I think about is when I hear all these people, because everybody sends me stuff like this. So I've been looking at stuff like this for years, but we're just finally talking about it because the president of the United States said, hey, we may start doing this. Well, they're already doing it. But the thing is that when people
I thought they always ask for permission.
Oh, no. So, whenever we start hearing, oh, don't worry because this is going to happen and this is going to happen and these people are really in control and blah, blah, blah. I don't see it that way because I see these things are happening. They're in Bible prophecy that there's going to be a world government, that one world government is going to have a one world leader. It's going to be the Antichrist. He's going to have his partner, the false prophet, and they're going to have a global economy that you're going to have to join up with and take the mark of that global economy and worship that Antichrist figure if you're going to participate in that. Well, we see those things happening. We're sitting here watching it happen. And to say, no, it's not really going to happen, they're going to stop all this, that there's white hats that are going to rush in and save the day type of thing, that's not what Bible prophecy tells me.
Okay? And basically, in a nutshell, if this wasn't creepy enough, these same guys believe in another lie called overpopulation of the planet. It's a lie. That's easy to demonstrate. You guys ever been in a plane? You ever looked out the window? What do you see? Open land everywhere. It's a lie. Look out the window. There's so much land, it's crazy. But they believe that because they want us to buy into that lie so it'll rationalize what they want to do. They want to literally annihilate 90% of the population of the planet. The remaining 10% gets to be genetically modified to serve them. Isn't that wonderful? That's their agenda, okay? By the way, it's called the Fourth Industrial Revolution or the Great Reset. And I've been warning people this for the last 6 months. Listen, the Great Reset, it's not just an economic reset, it's a human reset. These people are transhumanists. That's the other half of the equation you got to get, okay? But listen to what they say is going to happen with our workplace. First of all, they're going to genetically modify those they allow to live to serve them with a bigger brain, with software and memory updates made possible, right? The next thing is you're going to have implanted earwear to eliminate Bluetooth headsets and smartphones, right? So get this technology inside of you. You're going to have a larger stomach and a backside. I couldn't believe I came across that. You know what that rationale is? Because you're going to be sitting there all day working for them. And so you get a larger backside to be able to handle that physical stress and a stomach because you just eat. You ain't got time to, you exist for them. This is sick. And this is in print. They also say that they're going to have smaller sex organs and human interaction reduces, right? You won't have time for that stuff. So why do you need that? You don't need that body part. You have increased red eyes, obviously, from working all hours for them. Increased language skills to keep up with emerging economies and global working. Also, listen, smart fingers with chips that aid in work or implement security protocols. So they want to chip you in your hand. And I also have on tape Klaus Schwab, the head of the World Economic Forum, who's a transhumanist, bringing in this agenda with many other elites around the world. He's also said that he wants to put him, of all places, not just in the hand. Got him on tape. He said that back in 2016. And he said it was going to happen in 10 years. But just like we're getting used to having chips in everything, our products, humans are going to get them, including in the brain. And then in the brain, I got him the very next year, I got a video clip with him with Sergey Brin, who's also a transhumanist, co-founder of Google, with Larry Page. In an interview at the World Economic Forum, he told him what those brain chips will allow him to do, and that was to know people's thoughts. This is sick. This is what these guys want to do. And that's their version of utopia. Oh, it gets worse. It's going to change sexuality, right? Now, not only are the Mormons going along with this lie, but so is the LGBTQIXYZ, whatever, it keeps growing each week, whatever. But I can't even keep up with that personally. But these people are going along with this agenda as well, okay, because of this. And I quote, "It shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone that the LGBT movement and transhumanism have a lot in common." I'm like, well, why are they working with them? Watch this. Because after all, the LGBTQ whatever movement, that they have a desire to quote, free to alter, express, control one's sexual preference and identity, which is a transhumanist concept. You get it? So we will help you with transhumanism, and this is why you're seeing it go to the next stage. Remember, it used to be just the homosexual thing, and then it went to the transgender thing, which we're working. But what's the next thing that's already starting to come out? One example actually on tape was a guy who identifies as a female, but then at the same time he identifies as a wolf. And then this other girl who now identifies as a cat, and then the school has to accommodate by giving her a litter box. I'm not making this up. Check it out. So now you're talking about humans being something that you're not, male and female, but now it's mixing in the animal kingdom. Why? Because that's where transhumanists want to take us. So what you need to realize is this whole transgender thing isn't just about that. It is a big cash cow. For every person that comes out as a transgender, it generates $1.3 million for Big Pharma. So that's why it's being pushed. But it's also the mindset you need for these guys to come across the planet who want to alter humanity into human, animal, non-human, whatever. Do you see how it all fits together? But listen to the society that they want to create. They said this: in the next few years, the human beings will undergo a larger transformation. Men will be able to give birth with implanted uteri. Parents may choose to have designer babies without certain sexual organs. Some religions, like Roman Catholicism, could encourage males to be born with genetically lowered sex drives so they could have a better chance of becoming a celibate priest, which is a shrinking vocation in the U.S. What about fembots or sex bots, which are a multi-million-dollar industry already? Do we give them rights? Can we marry them? What if they're gay? What if we program them not to know if they're gay or not? And cybersex, watch this, you wonder why Meta was launched. Cybersex will become a reality where Facebook's Meta will allow people from all corners of the world to have group sex if they want. Such actions may lead to a society where, listen, male and female traits disappear altogether as pleasure becomes on demand and gene therapy is available to combine the most functional parts of both genders into one entity. And listen to this: some institutions like marriage will go the way of the dinosaurs. God judged Sodom and Gomorrah. You don't think he's going to judge this? This is way beyond. Oh, by the way, I got to kick this when I can. Sodom and Gomorrah, read the Genesis account. It wasn't just homosexuality. It said the men and the boys went to have sex with the angels. What's that? That's pedophilia, folks. And what's being promoted today? Even that's being repeated. As it was in the days of Noah, as it was in the days of Lot. Both of them are happening at the same time. But let me give you another one. It's going to change religion, right? You and I, we won't need to meet here anymore. We won't need to do this stuff, huh? Aren't you tired to stand up, sit down, do this, all that, Christian ritual stuff? You can skip all that, including funerals, they say, right? If you just let us genetically modify us, it's going to radically change that. And quote, people will no longer be weeping over a coffin, because again, you get to live forever if you go along with this program. And quote, listen, transhumanists are teaching kids that death is wrong. Right? And they wrote a book to get to kids to promote this. And you know what they called the book? Death is wrong. And they wrote it, listen to, quote, they want to fight pro-death prejudices, starting with kids. How dare you say you're going to die? Well, me personally, I'm going to try to make it the last thing I do. Unless the rapture happens. But it's just arrogance, total arrogance. You're going to die. The scripture's clear. These guys are in such a rude awakening. This is totally satanic. Hebrews 9:27, it is appointed man to what? Die once. After that, you're going to stand before God. The Bible's very clear. These guys are in for a rude awakening. Satan is tricking them all the way into the lake of fire. Oh, and by the way, it's going to happen exactly on time. Job 14:5, I love this passage. You, speaking of God, have decided the length of our lives. You know how many months we will live, and we are not given a minute longer. You're born on time, you're going to die on time. And these guys think they're going to escape it. No, you're not. But you know what? That doesn't stop them. Let's conclude with their methods. They got their plans. They got their leaders. They're all over the place. And they say, oh, I don't care what you say. I don't care. Quote your Bible all you want. We're going to use science and technology, and we've got our methods. We're going to live forever without Jesus and God. And believe it or not, the first one is a head transfer. Oh, yeah. I wish I was making this up. But these guys, literally, this is their plan. Right before we die, here's what we're going to do. We're going to chop our head off, and then we're going to put it on another person. You see, you think I'm joking. The medical community is already talking about that very procedure.
Let's just look at this process. According to Dr. Canavera, the first stage will involve the patient and donor's bodies being cooled down so the brain cells don't die during the operation. And then the neck will be partially cut through and the blood vessels will then be connected to the other body with tubes. So far, so simple. The next stage is that the spinal cord is cut with a very sharp knife, to minimize damage, and the donor head is then moved onto the recipient's body, and the spinal cord is fused together with a substance called polyethylene glycol, which is hope will repair the joint. I mean, I've got to ask you, at this point, someone is having their head cut off, which
So they are.
most people would normally define as death, really. I mean, is it okay to cut someone's head off for a doctor to do it?
Well, I'm not sure any of this is really okay, and it requires a little more thought, doesn't it? But yes, your point is entirely reasonable. At what point one dies, I believe your ethicist might have a consideration about that.
Ja, kära vänner, det här har varit en inspelning här med Janne Olin från Profetia mission. Profetia mission är en ideell organisation och vi hjälper församlingarna med alla möjliga saker. Predikningar, undervisning, och vi står öppen för kallelser att åka och undervisa om så vill. Profetia mission stöder också olika projekt för fattiga. Vi har organisationsnummer 802473-0841, bankgiro 192-7946, Swish nummer 123 503 1505. Kontakt kan du få olinelvor@gmail.com, olinjanne@gmail.com. Och för mer info om våra möten och våra övriga förehavanden och undervisning som är inspelat på nätet kan du se på den här avslutningsscenen då, för där står alla våra hemsidor och YouTube-kanaler och allting uppräknat. Guds frid och Guds välsignelse önskar vi här ifrån Profetia mission till dig i Jesu namn. Amen.